Nothing we say here is investment advice, legal advice, life advice, or representative of the views of the organization we are part of or affiliated with. See chainabstracted.com for more information.
Hi, everyone. This is Altan from Near Ecosystem. This is Chain Abstracted, one of the first sort of Chain Abstracted podcasts in crypto. Yeah, it was great. We actually just did a pod with Sam Kazemian from Frax, who was just launched Fraxtal, right, which is an L2. Frax is an interesting one. I think, like, when you think about stablecoins and how they work, it was an amazing conversation with Sam as to the history of stablecoins, to what is their roadmap, right? I mean, like, they have this L2, which we talk about, that was launched, but really asking the question of, like, you know, what is the history of stablecoins, where we are now, and where we're going into the future. And we even touched upon topics like network states and Frax kind of network state too, which was kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, man, this was one of those like talks and conversations where like I thought I knew stablecoins, like I've used stablecoins, but man, learning the history and going into what's currently done, how Frax works on Near.
Yeah, it's just been the energy that Sam brings and the characteristics that he has. I think it's just amazing to ask questions to him, and given he's a young guy, I mean, like, he's not like but that's being old in crypto means like being able to spend a lot of time in things, and nice to have someone that, you know, in 2013, 2014, mining Dogecoin and other things that are quite, you know, nobody does that anymore for a hobby, but it used to be in 2013, 2014 as a college hobby, right? So it is interesting. I mean, he's also a developer. He has a background in computer science, so it was really nice to ask questions and really sort of ask questions, being curious. We just did a research, and then questions came as we talked to Sam. So that was a bit of a natural podcast as well.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we hope you enjoy.
Well, welcome to the show, Sam. Love to have you here.
Hey guys, yeah, it's great to be on. Sam, founder of Frax, and now Fraxtal as well, modular rollup, and really excited to talk about lots of cool stuff we're doing here.
So we did some research actually on your background, and you have amazing sort of getting into crypto, right? I think you're like 2013, 2014 batch. Love to hear a bit more, like how did you start? I guess like stablecoins are not as the same as, like, you know, it is quite interesting in a sense that it touches everything, like political science, economics, all that cool stuff. So I'd love to hear more how you arrived in crypto.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually an interesting story. I was a college student at UCLA long ago these days. So over a decade ago, discovered crypto when just a few friends were talking about Bitcoin, and then they never went into it. And I just went down the rabbit hole like 100 times more than them. I got into mining, and back then it was the new script coins, Litecoin, Dogecoin, one of the earliest miners, and everything then. What really interested me about crypto that got me into it was the fact that of decentralized money, so money itself. And what got me into things that eventually became Frax was that I actually had this philosophical view. So I was a neuroscience and philosophy major at UCLA. I never, did CS. I self-taught myself programming and all that. But what really got me interested in cryptocurrency was the currency part combined with crypto. And one of the main things was that the stability of cryptocurrency back then was like, people were thinking that was the only possible reason why, for example, your coffee won't be denominated in BTC. Back then, there was only BTC and these coins, right? And that really got me interested in stable coins. And back then, the word stable coin, like the 2013-14, was not a thing, right? Like Tether had not even come out yet, and everything. And there was this one white paper proposed by Robert Sams. And now most people don't know any about this kind of history. I consider it the Bitcoin white paper of stable coins. And the name of the white paper was called Signerage Shares. People might know because some things were influenced by this. It's like the precursor to any kind of algorithmic stablecoin design. And the idea was, what if you had a proof of work blockchain? And back then, because everything was proof of work, again, this was like published in 2014. And instead of one token like Bitcoin or like Litecoin on the chain, you had two tokens. You had a share token and you had a stable token. And the share token was really volatile. And so people would buy and invest in it or whatever, like Bitcoin. And the stable token had this monetary policy where if the price of that token was higher than the price feed Oracle or whatever, then more of that stable token, more of the currency would just be minted. And then the question was, well, who are you going to mint it to? If you mint this second token, it's a fully decentralized proof of work blockchain. How you don't want a human being to actually go and distribute the currency. That's an anathema to the whole thing. Well, what you would do is you would actually basically airdrop it to the share token holders, the token holders of this second token. And then the other side, right? What if when the price of this stable token is below the target, it's below the Oracle? Well, you need to remove some of that stable token from the market, right? To make it scarcer and go back up to that Oracle price. How do you do that? Well, what you do is you mint some of the share token, that other token in the ecosystem, and you auction it, through the proof of work blockchain. They'd have a special, module there that people can send in their, stable token for that share token. And that basically makes it so that the price of the stable token rises because more of it gets taken out from the market. And so this was the very first idea. Obviously, it doesn't work without collateral, right? Like now we know from Terra and things like that. And actually, one of the main things with Frax is that it's inspired by, in fact, the governance token is called the Frax share token in reference to this white paper called Signerage shares. And people don't know this background, so it's like kind of the lore. And it's like the Bitcoin white paper of all decentralized stablecoins. But then the premise with Frax is you can have some kind of algorithmic monetary policy, but you need the stablecoin to be fully collateralized. You can have it collateralized with other assets. You can't have it collateralized with the share token, which was the main thing that this concept got wrong. But it was this revolutionary idea where it's like you can have the nascent. This was before smart contracts even, right? This stablecoin white paper was proposed before Ethereum, before Vitalik and Gavin Wood published the Ethereum yellow paper and all this stuff. So like there was not even the concept of, other tokens issued through smart contracts, ERC20 tokens or anything. I know a lot of people probably listening, they're like newer in crypto, they might be like, well, why didn't they just do it like this? Like, well, this was in 2014. Yeah, exactly. And so that actually inspired me to be really interested in stable design or like stable token design. And so my views changed back then, which was like, I thought if anything was going to be used as a currency, right, actually used to denominate, stuff in crypto itself, in consumer, things, it won't be that your coffee is like denominated like 0.0001 BTC or something. It would be in stable tokens, right? In stable coins like, DAI, Frax, now, there was then Tether came out at USDC and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the background here. And so Frax originally started as 7 years later, or like, 6 years later after this white paper and a few others, it started a company for that in the crypto space called IQ Wiki. It's like a decentralized knowledge base. It's actually up doing well. It's powered by an IQ token and everything. But then when I really got down to making a cryptocurrency, I realized that cryptocurrency is a misnomer because a lot of these aren't actual currencies, right? In order to be a currency, you need some actual price stability. And that's how Frax was born. Frax basically took the idea and the motivation and inspiration of like the Signerage shares model, which is what the governance token is named after, but with an actual collateralized stable coin. And so that's why obviously like the Frax stablecoin has grown, it's been resilient, hasn't ever had any issues, thankfully, and everything like that.
Okay, so I guess if we were to, that is amazing context as to how Frax came to be. Do you know why you guys picked Frax as a name? Just was just curious when I was thinking about it.
The original name for the project and the DAO was actually Decentral Bank. That was the actual original name before Frax. Like the name of the protocol was supposed to be Decentral Bank, and then the name of the stable coin was supposed to be Frax, same way like Maker and Dai. And back then, one of the Ethereum co-founders, I think if I remember correctly, his name was like Anthony D'Iorio or something. He had a accelerator VC called Decentral in Canada, and they asked us nicely if we could change the name. And so we hadn't launched yet. And so we said, well, why don't we just actually make it more consistent and name the protocol on the asset itself, just like Bitcoin and BTC, right? Like, Frax Finance and Frax. And we did that. And so Frax itself stands for fractional algorithmic in terms of not part of it being backed by FXS or anything anymore, but fully collateralized in terms of the equivalent of fractional reserve banking using smart contracts, right? Like fully collateralized by other things, exogenous assets, over collateralized loans, recently partly real world asset partners and providers, right? Like short-term treasury bills. But yeah, the name comes from basically this hybrid design that doesn't necessarily have to be a fiat coin, just backing it one-to-one by a fiat.
I see. So just if we were to break down the stablecoin landscape, right? You have like USDC, USDT, you have Maker, you have you guys, you have like, I guess, can you break that down? And then maybe potentially like we can now deep dive into a bit more on-chain stuff and deep dive into the future work.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, I think what happened with stablecoin design as kind of like now like a historian of stablecoins from the beginning to the current, era, is like there was a renaissance, if you will, of like design and experimentation, and a lot of obviously failures. The most famous one, Terra, Luna. And so I think a lot of the designs that we now know objectively that don't work, like fully algorithmic backing a stablecoin by its own token, or like it, something like that, I actually don't even consider it really, even worth to actually put down in terms of the possible legitimate stablecoin designs. I actually only see things in two designs now. One is a fiat stablecoin design. Everyone is familiar with this. It's basically USDC, Tether, newer fiat coins that are coming that are kind of competitors in this area. They're usually backed by just cash or short-term treasury bills, which are very much equivalent to cash, right? Those are very simple to understand. There's a bank. There's basically a way that you redeem them, and that's how the price is kept stable. And then there's everything else, which basically, in my opinion, is stable coins that are not redeemable for cash because there's no bank behind them. There's no corporation like Circle or Tether Inc. or something. But things like Maker, things like Frax, and the main distinction is there's no bank, right? There's no entity. There's no redemption for cash, but that they use smart contracts and collateral, whether they're over collateralized loans, right, which people are probably familiar with. You lock up a lot of cryptocurrency in a contract and you mint a smaller amount of stablecoins. So there's a lot of crypto that backs a small amount of stablecoins. And then other things that we've actually developed called protocol-owned liquidity. We have that kind of thing where smart contracts deploy newly minted Frax into AMMs, and then that Frax is backed by literally the liquidity of the other side, right? AMMs are two tokens. So like when Frax is minted into like a Frax USDC pool, for example, that newly minted Frax is one-to-one backed by that USDC, right? And so if, someone puts in USDC, they get out one Frax, right? At that rate, the LP provider, which is the protocol, it has access to that one USDC. So we developed a lot of new DeFi primitives for Frax. And I just bucket stablecoin designs into two, right? Is it redeemable for cash? Is there a centralized entity behind it? And so most likely it's regulated and known kind of like a new age bank, so to speak, right? Like if it's a fiat coin. And then is it everything else? Like a sound design where it all has to be collateralized, right? By external assets, crypto assets, right? Not its own token, right? Just external crypto assets. And as long as that's the case, you can build smart contracts that have the price of the stablecoin through an oracle, right? And so if the price of the stablecoin is slightly below $1, you might raise interest rates on some of these loans to get people to buy back the stablecoin and repay their loans because it's getting more expensive. Or if the price of the stablecoin is slightly above $1, you can mint new stablecoins into protocol-owned liquidity AMM pools, right, and increase the supply of the stablecoin and have it backed by the other side of that AMM pool, like USDC or some other asset, and things like that. And so basically, you have a stablecoin that doesn't have a bank, right? Like it's not a fiat stablecoin with cash in it, but you have excellent stability, right? Stuff like DAI, stuff like Frax. Those are the main two buckets, because I usually think if when people make it more complicated than it is, like, oh, there's these algorithmic ones and there's these fiat ones, then there's these like real world things or whatever. It becomes super complex for people that aren't, in the DeFi and stablecoin space. And then what happens is they just get focused on the details that don't necessarily matter.
Yeah, like let me jump in because this is awesome, man. Like when you hear stable coins, I don't even know if people listen to the first 20 minutes of this. It's like, this is a really complex, but also simple and really thought out system. So real quick, let me just recap this because I think I'm understanding this. So you've got like your USDC, which is the value is anchored to a real world value of a previous currency. Then you have something like Frax, which is almost like decentral, like the value is created by the decentralization within the Web3 ecosystem, right? Like anything can almost add value to the other side of it with the AMM, right? Frax is as valuable as the counterparty value against it. Is that how it works?
Yeah, like that's a good way to put it, because like Frax can't have a bank account, right? But what it can do is it can create credit, right, over collateralized loans, right, of different assets that are pristine, like ETH, like NEAR, right, is a blue chip, very liquid L1 token, like BTC, right, like WBTC on different chains, right, and then also ETH, right, LSDs, right. In fact, Frax actually does issue its own LSD Frax Ether that is frequently used as collateral to mint Frax stablecoins. So that's a good way to put it. Another way, just as an aside, that I like to explain the stablecoins like Frax and DAI compared to fiat coins is that they're actually closer to central banking money than people might think, because, for example, the dollar is not redeemable for anything, right? If you hold a dollar bill, right, like this piece of paper with pictures of dead presidents on it, right, you can't go and go to the Federal Reserve or some other thing that's the issuer, right, or even online on the Federal Reserve account or something, and say, hey, I want to redeem this dollar for anything. It used to be gold, it's not gold anymore, but now it's not anything at all, right? You can't actually get a basket of CPI goods, right, the consumer price index goods or anything. In fact, the only way that people are sure that the dollar has any kind of stability is that the Fed has a mandate to keeping the dollar pegged to CPI, which is the consumer price index. Today is actually, we're talking on a Wednesday. Today is the day that happens to fall on every month where the CPI report is announced, right? Which is the prices of consumer assets, like things that people need to buy with their dollars: oil, energy, rent, medical care, food, all of these things that people need for a standard of living, right? And so the Fed tries to keep the dollar priced to the CPI, plus minus some leeway that it gives itself, right, 2.5%. And so the idea with central banking money is it's not redeemable for anything. Like you can't go to the Fed or the U.S. government and say, hey, I have a dollar, you guys promised to redeem it. They didn't. There's no redeemability to it. The only thing is a promise that says, hey, the Federal Reserve has the ability to increase interest rates or sell its balance sheet and mint dollars. And it will do that into the secondary market to make sure that the price of a $1 stays relatively close to the price of critically needed consumer goods, right? And the reason this is actually similar to Frax and DAI and these other stablecoins, we also don't have a bank account. You can't come to like the Frax protocol and say, hey, I have one Frax stablecoin, give me $1 of cash, because there's no bank, right? But there is verifiable, transparent, auditable smart contracts that conduct these market operations, like increasing interest rates, or like I was saying, minting new Frax in AMM pools that are passed by governance and these things. And those actions keep the actual Frax stablecoin pegged to its target, which is $1, right? The Fed has a different target because pegging the dollar to itself wouldn't make any sense. The peg of the dollar essentially is CPI, this basket of consumer goods. So one thing I usually like to say is the dollar is a stable coin. It does have a peg. It's just that the peg is the average sum of consumer goods. That's what the dollar's peg is. When the dollar is inflating, right? Everyone knows the term inflation. If you translate that to DeFi speak, it's basically saying the Fed stablecoin is depegged. If inflation is like 10%, that basically means if the dollar was a stablecoin, it'd be at like 90 cents or like 92.5 cents or something. That's basically what it means. Obviously, the main thing here is Frax is predominantly like an asset issuer. It does now have its own chain, Fraxtal, modular rollup. And the cool thing is our goal is basically to issue Frax currency in as many chains as possible, particularly with priority to blue chip mainstay chains just like Near, and have the Frax currency be integral in actually the DeFi ecosystem of these chains, and then also build bridges, metaphorically and literally, in terms of native currency issuance. So one thing we're working on is making sure Frax assets are natively issued on Near, and making sure that DeFi platforms on Near that use Frax, they don't have to have third-party bridge assumptions like wrapped Frax tokens wrapped in this bridge and then brought over there and stuff, because currency should only have the risk of the issuer, right? Like the actual trust of the peg being kept, right? For dollars, it's the Fed's mandate. For Frax, it's the Frax smart contracts keeping it to peg. So we have our currency issuance mandate, and we're also working with Near in terms of making sure that Fraxtal dApps and also L3s that build on Fraxtal chain use Near DA as a solution in terms of their scaling. So that's actually something we're super excited about. The way that we've kind of designed Fraxtal, like the chain where all of the collateral for Frax and its LSDs and all of its currencies resides, as well as where the monetary policy happens, which is what I was kind of talking about. The interest rates rise on those loans, or like the new Frax is minted into protocol-owned liquidity. What Fraxtal is basically a central bank chain. So it's like a decentralized central bank, right? And it lives on Fraxtal. And so for people that want to launch app chains or L3s, whether they're like, for example, perp trading protocols, or they're like DeFi systems, or even if there's like SocialFi or GameFi chains that want to be have close access, right, to currency yields and important things like dollar denominated yields, other things that Frax actually does. Maybe they want to be able to take out a native loan for their currency or their like perpdex chain using collateral that of their own token or something like that, right? They can do that from Fraxtal, the chain, right, where the central bank is basically located, and then they can build right under that. They can move the currency through the trustless bridge. And Fraxtal and Frax itself, we're not technology providers, right? We don't have like a competing DA or like a, we're not here to say like we have a new consensus method that like, outscales Near or Solana or something like that. And so that's why we partner and work directly with like you guys at Near, which we're super excited for the Near DA rollout, as well as Fraxel support for native Frax issuance. So that's actually all the stuff that we have going, which is pretty cool. It's kind of the full stack. It's asset issuance as well as blockchain technology. So yeah.
So we have all these stable coins, right? Like we have USDC, USDT. USDC just announced, I think last year it was CCTP that want to just like mint tokens. Like Near, for example, they have like a stable, native stable coin on Near. And I guess you guys, I know the Maker DAO, all that like forum had an idea. It was like, are we going to fork Solana? Are we going to, like have their own chain? So I guess it seems like we have these two separate ways of minting a stable coin, right? And then we have two different approaches where like, how do you think about this? I guess like, how do you compare yourself in this bucket with Maker? And what was the main driver for you to have your own chain, and what it brings, I guess, like compared to USDC and USDT?
Yeah, definitely. So our view is that the most important asset that is going to be cross-chain is a stable unit. So like that's why obviously we think like the dollar peg stable coin, or like a highly liquid asset has liquidity on multiple chains, is the thing that people will use to bridge their value across different places. And so each large stablecoin will probably have its own native bridging or minting solution. As you said, Circle has CCTP. We actually have this thing called the Frax Ferry. And the reason we call it a ferry is because it's not a bridge. It just natively issues and mints and redeems the Frax tokens on different chains. So people don't have to think it has like bridge risk. And everyone of the large stablecoins will have their own like native system, so that people can actually move between the native liabilities of these highly liquid assets. Now, the next question is like, which ones will have their own chain? And to be honest, we're very pro-chain, multi-chain worldview, which is, I think the chains are the new smart contracts. So given sufficient time, all major DeFi platforms will probably have their own chain where they're based in, not necessarily like a, evergreen ecosystem type of network like Near or like Ethereum or something like that. But the bank, so to speak, again, will be based on in their chain. And we already know that Maker has announced, Maker chain. You could kind of argue actually that Base is USDC's native place, because it's by Coinbase, and Coinbase essentially owns Circle, or has a large near majority stake in Circle. And so I think all of the large stablecoin providers will have their own chain, because they need to focus and have the bank, the monetary policy emanate from some. So yeah.
So this podcast is chain abstracted. I guess we call it chain abstracted because Near is working on chain abstraction. A lot of folks are working with chain abstraction. What does that mean for Frax? I guess like, does that mean that I just get into one interface and all these like, I think you said Ferry, right? For the, like, I'm able to buy Frax anywhere, and then I'm able to use that stablecoin to do anything. What would be your vision for sort of chain abstraction?
Definitely. I think chain abstraction is probably, in terms of both narrative, conceptual understanding, and also just memetics, I think, probably better than kind of the like multi-chain, like the multi-chain world and stuff, because it properly conceptualizes both the end state and also the actual path to get there, right? In order for there to be chain abstraction, probably has to be many chains. Otherwise, if there was just one chain abstracting it away, it's not that interesting, right? And so the final end state is that no matter which chain you're on, or if you move between different chains, all of this stuff is abstracted away in a stateless, very, very clean flow. And I think Near has probably done the best job at articulating and owning this, not just meme, but this narrative that is probably one of the most powerful narratives in the industry. So how Frax kind of goes into that and why we're very excited to work with Near and continue to build out that vision is our goal is no matter what chain you're on, again, whether you even notice which chain it is or not in the future, there should be some Frax asset that you're interacting with and able to make use of, whether it's like Frax, the dollar peg stablecoin, so you can have stability, or SFrax, it's actually the yielding version of the dollar peg stablecoin. So if you are saving in dollar units or using it as collateral in lending markets, or let's say you are doing LSD, yield and LSD DeFi, right? Like Frax Ether exists. We're exploring Frax Near actually as also a potential LSD issuance, right? And another way I usually like to call these LSD tokens is they're essentially stable coins just pegged to a new unit instead of a dollar, right? A stable coin is just something that basically, again, means stability and collateralization, but pegged to a unit, right? And so LSDs are just basically ETH peg stable coins, or if it's near peg stable coin. And our goal is basically to make sure that these are everywhere on every chain and kind of abstract away the bridging experience that people have, and to make sure that anywhere you are, you see basically the Frax currencies or whatever is relevant to you.
Definitely. I just wanted to follow up because you talked about the Frax Ferry a little while ago, right? That I like that term because bridging and chain abstraction, there's a whole different sort of approach. But if you could maybe go a little bit more into the Frax Ferry and discuss the underlying mechanics a little bit, not too granular, but just a little bit sort of, and in the area that how it ensures how it works basically.
It's kind of similar to CCTP of Circle. And the idea is basically every 24 hours, which is the current speed, we're obviously working on making it safe and making it faster, but every 24 hours, any Frax asset across different chains that support the ferry can be brought back and forth in one-to-one, essentially minted or redeemed for the other asset on the other side. And it's not a bridge, right? You can't put any other token through it other than Frax assets. And the way that it works is it works by signatures. So as people deposit into the Frax Ferry contract on one side, those signatures are basically hashed and there's a root committed on the other one. Anyone can dispute that, if there's an issue or if there's a fraudulent hash or something. But after a 24-hour period or some epoch period, the tokens get one-to-one minted and redeemed, essentially swapped at a exact mint to redeem rate between the native versions unlike, for example, Frax Ferry on, Fraxtal, chain, and then Frax Ferry on Ethereum mainnet, for example. And it's kind of similar to CCTP. CCTP is like Circle's thing, which is, you send USDC into that contract on one layer, and then the difference is just Circle sees it. Once Circle sees it, they will actually push their own signature on the other side saying that, we stand by this transfer, and then we're burning this USDC and giving it to the same address on the other side. Frax Ferry is kind of a more decentralized version of that, where it's a hash and challenge. And then we're actually working to make it very fast and maybe even able to make it faster than even something centralized like CCTP. But it's a very difficult thing when it comes to bridging, as I'm sure people know, or just anything across chains because of reorg risk, security, and these kind of things. So ideally, it'll be on the order of minutes and maybe seconds to and from, Fraxtal chain. But not all chains will be able to have as quickly as minutes, obviously, because of reorg risk in their different security, settings and profiles.
This is fascinating stuff, man. I'm hoping, from a not extremely technical person, I'm hoping it's just there's a DApp or a product, there's the chain abstraction layer, and then below that, all this stuff kind of happens, and the proof of value that exists from a Frax to an opposing value created in an AMM, I'll almost never see. Do you think it'll get to that point?
Yeah, I think definitely, right? We're geeking out over the different modules and stuff, right? In 3-4 years, I don't even think people will know what Frax Ferry actually is, but it'll power the actual underlying system. What they'll see is, again, abstracted away, things where on the DeFi layer, they can use Frax, send it, earn S Frax yield. You might not even know which parts are on near, on Fraxtal or on like Ethereum. They'll probably use these like aggregator front end applications, and then there'll be ways in which the ferry is abstracted out, the between chain transactions are abstracted out. I think actually near will probably be one of the frontiers there because of chain signatures, right? So like a lot of the times these tokens might not even have to leave near because of the chain signatures, right? So once Frax is natively issued on near, there's like a good chance that like a lot of it will just live on near, and that TVL will be on near as the chain signatures kind of move out, things on different chains and control different chains without people even needing to know that's what's going on.
Whoa, Alton, I think it just like chains. I've been hearing so much about chain signatures, and you just put it into like a way that I understand now with using the stablecoin and chain signatures. Cool, dude, Alton, awesome.
Yeah, I have interesting sort of perspective here, which is essentially, well, I grew up in Turkey, and my parents are still in Turkey, so stablecoins are actually an amazing way for me to send money across the borders. So if you think about it, right, like I don't want to, when you send through a bank, like if you send it after 3 p.m. in the UK or 3 p.m. in Turkey or something, it arrives the next day, which like if I want to send the money like right now, it's not as fast as like stable coins. And recently I made an sort of angel investment for the first time with USDC to a non-native sort of like non-native crypto company, right? They just do a food tech company. So I have a question there. Like I know you were doing I think Frax Nation state or any of these like a network state. What do you think about this whole construction? Like, well, how do you think it being sort of actualized in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, definitely. It's a really interesting question because I think Frax is probably one of the most long-term oriented protocols. Like we plan to basically be in crypto, the next 10, 20, even more years. And so, Ethereum is closing in on like 10 years. Bitcoin is like 15 years and stuff. I think Frax will have the same kind of longevity. And Lindy, we're definitely not new on the block, and we're definitely not short-term sighted in terms of, fun meme narratives. We build for the very, very long term. And it is a cool concept. So I think, are you talking about kind of the network state stuff that you've seen like Balaji talk about and things like that? Yeah. So I think actually Fraxtal is the closest thing we've come to pushing forward that idea, because you definitely do need your own chain if you're going to have a digital country, right? Like people need identity that they can kind of associate with this kind of, there'll be, .frax, usernames and things like that on Fraxtal. There's already, .near and stuff, just like the .eth identifiers, that you need a digital economy. So one of the most important things for a network state, which is this concept of, instead of land requiring kind of a nation, you can build the essential ingredients of a country distributed over the internet due to crypto, right? Crypto is like the state, right? And because it actually gives the final ingredient to being able to have political agreements, economic agreements, financial agreements between different parties that have an internet connection, right? So there's no reason why you can't have internet-like nations, right? Which is kind of the idea that Balaji calls the network state. It's a network of people, organizations, things that share, common values, and they create essentially what's de facto functionally similar to what people know as nation states. They just might not have a contiguous, land, right? The contiguous kind of like the U.S. There's not enough land for new countries and stuff. You can maybe buy them and things, but you don't need them in the 21st century. I think Frax is probably one of the closest things actually to being kind of this network state, because we have such advanced like currency issuance, credit creation, financial, layer in terms of it being sustainable, internal, and people are using it. And so with Fraxtal, you have the final ingredients of kind of the network state of, identifiers, place where people can build essentially digital land, not real contiguous,
Totally.
land. Yeah.
I love digital ownership, right? So which is like true ownership in a digital space, whatever that is, right? And then you've got to have to define all these like ways to create like a digital state or a country or whatever. And I'm seeing how like stable coins have a massive use case in that.
One thing the near community can expect is natively issued Frax and SFrax, the yielding asset. There's already some Frax that's, I think, like flowing on near through like the official Rainbow Bridge, but the thing we're working towards is making sure that as Frax grows, we do this native issuance there that we were talking about, and essentially teaming up to power both the near, financial DeFi ecosystem, the near nation state network state, so to speak, right? And then also using Near's technology, both in terms of chain signatures, Near DA, as much as possible in the Fraxtal roadmap for either L3s. So if you're an L3 and considering Fraxtal to be the place you settle, there's obviously other ones. There's Base, Base has L3s, there's Arbitrum and all these things. But a lot of people have expressed interest in building the first few L3s that will probably go online in the next couple of weeks. If that's you, would be really cool to explore Near DA. So reach out to us in that sense and tell us what you're building. And additionally, it'll be really cool to get native Frax assets on Near in the near future. No pun intended.
You were on Forbes 30 under 30?
Yeah.
All right.
I think it, yeah. That's that was the first actually year I think that Frax was live because it was growing so fast. So it was pretty cool.
Nice. Are you still doing powerlifting from your UCLA days? What are you thinking in that world?
Indeed. That's basically kind of all I do. I basically work on Frax. So I basically have this 24/7 thing of, if I'm not sleeping, I'm either working on Frax on Telegram or in meetings, or I am lifting. So I have like a garage gym, and I still do squat, bench, and deadlifts. And I don't think I'll ever quit, barring any injury.
Nice. How do you feel about kettlebells? Because I get into those every once in a while, and I kind of dig this style with them.
They're good accessories, right? I mainly entirely basically do the accessories with like kettlebells and different kind of things, but the main powerlifting compound lifts are irreplaceable.
We've just like philosophically broke down stablecoins in a beautiful way. The origin, how they differ. Now it's like, you're a user in Web3. How do you actually use Frax? I want to go get some Frax, and I want to use it.
Right. So I think the best things are like Burrow, right? Burrow Finance on Near, and then also other DeFi platforms on Near. The cool thing is, so currently Frax stablecoins are on Near, and then there will be kind of a seamless transition to the native version of Frax and SFrax. And if you're a user, you don't have to do anything to figure that out. You can just start using Frax and SFrax on Near, and liquidity pools start earning. There's also we're bringing FXS, the governance token, Frax Share, and doing joint incentives with Near and DeFi protocols. So that's super important, because I think that's how communities have joint ownership, right, of both Frax, the protocol, Near, the chain, and then the other DeFi ecosystems. That's kind of how you get dual citizenship in the network state, so to speak, right? You want to be a participant and owner kind of Frax governance tokens, as well as Near tokens and things like that. So for now, use Frax stablecoins, SFrax yield in Near DeFi, and then soon there will be places to earn FXS tokens, as well as just a seamless transition to native Frax assets on Near.
Since I have Sam here, and I have a big question, which is like, obviously, sort of like you understand sort of risk, right? You understand security. These are the things that like stablecoin manages risk really nicely, right? You've been managing this for 4 years. Now there's this new paradigm of restaking, right? I mean, this is kind of somebody that builds on EigenLayer, myself. What do you think about restaking, and any opinions you have there? And like given how would you design the system if you were to design it yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll be honest. At first, I was pretty pretty skeptical of restaking, not because the idea isn't brilliant, it really is, right? But the fact that I was thinking, okay, well, where's the revenue going to come from all of these restaking services? Because, you know, there's like 100 billion or some hundreds of billions of ETH staked, right? If we're going to increase the APY of like, you know, restaked ETH by like 1%, you need like, you know, billions of dollars of revenue from restaking services, billions, to just move it from like the 3% POS yield to like 4%. And we know that doesn't really, you know, raise anyone's eyebrows, right? It needs to be like 10, 15, 20% or something to really move the markets in DeFi and stuff, right? And then I realized, okay, well, there's obviously going to be this ecosystem of tokens, points that will bootstrap this for a few years, just like everything else in crypto, which again, doesn't mean it's bad. It just means people are discounting the fact that for a few years, there won't be that revenue, but that doesn't mean it's bearish. It actually means like it's bullish. And then in a few years, you can actually envision billions of dollars of revenue, right? And so then it started to really make sense to me. I think the main thing with restaking, though, is to make sure that people know kind of the risks of hypothecation, but also, again, like I was saying, LSDs are like stable coins. They are just pegged to a different unit. Once you kind of think about it like that, and you see this as just like crypto level decentralized banking, right? Then your opinion kind of changes from it, because there's no actual difference to, like, for example, backing a stablecoin like Frax or DAI with a over collateralized loan that is originally like a loan of something else, right? That's basically like restaking. It's like a loan of a loan, right? With the restaking, you're basically first loaning the ETH to the Ethereum validator, right? The raw validator, and then you're tokenizing that, right, loan. You're basically tokenizing the loan to the original validator, and you're taking that token, and then you're using that as collateral to loan to a AVS, right, a restaking service, and then basically using the loan as a source of collateral that is at stake. So as long as people understand it like that, because that's basically what it is, I think it's a really new, efficient, and really bullish thing in the industry.
Dude, that's a really good breakdown of it. And I always think of, like, you remember the movie Inception? Like, each layer they go, it's exponentially, like, time slows down, but then also it gets way more like delicate and like sensitive. I kind of feel like restaking has a little bit of that vibe. Like, each time you do it, like you said, it's like a little bit of a move needs a lot more. So
yeah, I love that movie. The dreams on the lower level affect the ones at the top, which is true, which is why it's dangerous. If a restaked asset implodes, so does the underlying system.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we have 5 more minutes to go. Well, really love to. It was one of the best episodes we've done. I think it's because you have a deep experience in the industry. Love stablecoins. I personally love them. Like, I think they're great. I have some Frax on here, so that's good to have. So any closing thoughts about what you've been working on? Could be related to near Fraxtal, Frax as a stablecoin. Anything that you want to share?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just overall, looking very forward to both like the near community and the Frax community joining forces. I've already seen a lot of people come from the near community into like the Frax Telegram channels or these places and say, I'm from near, checking out Frax, which is really awesome. And then, hopefully there's a lot of stuff you guys see from people that know Frax that are checking out near. And then as people are able to earn, FXS and near, and then, near DeFi tokens on the ecosystem, that activity will just increase. And I think that's how we create value together, whether it's on the DeFi layer or using the blockchain layer. It's basically new people discovering and working with other people that are working hard on different things, right? Because at the end of the day, this is all technology, but it kind of is to serve people and to make people's lives better. And so the main actually thing that I always look for is when we do big partnerships like Frax and Near is like, do I see cross community discovery? And I do see that, and I do see the Frax community talking about Near things that they didn't know that they've learned, and I'm sure that they're actively checking out. And then I obviously see Near people coming into Frax ecosystem, things that they've learned about stablecoins, DeFi, and then the ability for them to use that both on Near and in Fraxtal or in other places as well. And then Frax leveraging the Near technology stack, chain signatures, Near DA and everything to build out the Fraxtal chain roadmap and L3 vision. So that's the best stuff, I think, to on a high level to really be excited about it. As always, if anyone wants to contact me, super available. They want to join the Frax community. It's at Frax Finance on Telegram. Same thing on Twitter. It's at Frax Finance, and would love to see them there. I'm always there. Pretty accessible. You guys probably know. So yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it was great to speak with Sam. Anything like using leveraging Near tech to, if you're actually looking to build L3s on Fraxtal, we're happy to reach out to us as well, and we can set that up. And I know that there's some nice sort of announcements coming from Frax about this one as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there's been a lot of exciting stuff coming out both on our end for incentives for those L3s with Near DA, and keep an eye out. And thanks for having me, guys. It was a pleasure.